What's good, Mimer Timers? It's your boy, Mime Time here, and welcome to Mime Time, a show where we talk about the Asian diaspora experience, overcoming our identity struggles to become the best versions of ourselves. Here we have the Big Cheeky 5-0, episode number 50, featuring Aaron Tam, the founder and host of the First Generations podcast. Growing up in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, he was raised in an immigrant household with a scarcity mindset, much like my own. Through walking his own path of struggles, failure, and adversity, he was able to discover his passion for self-development and many valuable life lessons that has helped him thrive today. He uses his podcast as a platform with the goal to inspire, motivate, offer insight, experience, and to empower people to believe in themselves. Aaron defines the term first generation as someone that has paved their own path and definition of success on their own terms, no matter the hardships, negativity, and obstacles they had to overcome. Many individuals walk similar journeys in life, but no one walks the exact same path. And him being a cheeky CBC, a Canadian-born Chinese, not Chinese-born Canadian. I kept messing this up. I had to re-record this part like 5 times. CBC stands for Canadian-born Chinese, not Chinese-born Canadian. He's a CBC, which is like being ABC, but maple syrup flavored. Anyways, he is CBC. I'm Korean American, and we talk about Asian diaspora identity, of course. I mean, that's the whole point of the show. We talk about reconciling 2 different cultures, Western individualism and Eastern collectivism, the feeling of duty in family and taking care of our parents, my journey in Korea, like my journey learning Korean, getting in touch with my roots and all that. It's, stuff you probably heard if you've listened to this show already. And we talk about feeling out of place in the motherland and how we deal with it when we come back to Asia to see family and relatives and, travel. We talk about how we handle our emotions and reactions with people when we feel we're treated differently. Like when people say, "Oh, what kind of Asian are you?" Or, "But where are you really from?" Shout out to those 2 podcasts out there, "But Where Are You Really From" podcast and "What Kind of Asian Are You" podcast. I highly recommend those podcasts. For me, I like to not take things so seriously and to take things with a good sense of humor. And we talk about how hardship serves as a catalyst for us to transform our lives and do awesome things, and the rich rewards of putting yourself out of your comfort zone. So we got a dope episode today, and maybe half of it is me just rambling and stuff you've heard before, but that's what you get when it's mime time. Hey, that's what you get when it's mime time. Oh, that's what you get when it's mime time. Hey, that's what you get when it's mime time. Oh, I feel like this intro is already really long, but I'm going to reinforce a point here. I would really, really appreciate it if you shared the episodes on Mime Time that resonate with you the most to your good friends and acquaintances. Not only will it help my show and help my numbers, more importantly, it can make an impact in someone's life. It could change someone's life if they just hear some of the stupid bullshit that I talk about. It might make them think of their own lives and encourage them to change in a more positive direction and maybe inspire them to be better people in their own way. That's why I'm doing this podcast, so I can become a better person myself, so I can become the best version of myself, as cliche and cheesy as that sounds. And you might not give a shit about any of this or what's going on in my life right now, but I'm super busy. I'm working like 4 or 5 different projects / part-time job, freelancing gigs and whatnot. But I'm still devoted and I'm still dedicated to putting out at least 1 episode a week. So I have these precious windows of time, like a late Sunday night before the episode is supposed to go out. I put a lot of time and focus and hard energy into Mime Time. So if you could just share it with your friends and have a cheeky chat about it, it would mean the fucking world to me. I would appreciate it so much. Please enjoy today's episode. Have a great week. And remember, we're motherfucking gods, mate. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mime Time. Today, we have Aaron of First Generations Podcast. He's the show host and producer for the First Generations Podcast. And let me tell you, as someone who is first generation Korean American, as soon as I listened to his podcast and his episode with Kyle Leung, who I had on episode 30 of my podcast, I was just like, this guy's the motherfucking god of First Generations Podcast, mate. Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing well. I'm very grateful. I'm living, breathing, and I'm just again I'm happy, man. What about you?
I am doing good. I am somewhat caffeinated right now, and yeah, I'm having a good morning. I'm having a good morning here in the land of the morning calm, and I just want to thank you for coming onto the show. And for those of you who don't know, just to give some more background. On episode 30, I interviewed Kyle Leung, who's the host of What Kind of Asian Are You podcast. And we had an amazing conversation. But how I came across Kyle was, I think I was just doing some Google research on I can't be the only Asian diaspora related podcast out there, right? So I think I typed in something like Asian diaspora podcast. And this one result came out, What Kind of Asian Are You podcast with Kyle Leung, featured on Aaron's podcast, which is the First Generations Podcast. And that episode was so awesome. I was like, I got to have both of these guys on my show. So I did that with Kyle. And now it's finally about time. We have Aaron on the show. Aaron, would you please tell us what your podcast is all about and how you got to start on it?
Yeah, of course. First off, I'm honored to be on, so super thankful. And again, my podcast is called First Generations Podcast, and basically it's about the premise behind it is to share perspective. Now it's called first generation because I define first generation in a more metaphorical sense, where first generation to me means it is someone who has paved their own path and definition of success on their own terms. No matter the hardships, obstacles, and negativity they had to overcome, they continued on and didn't quit. And essentially in our world, many individuals walk similar journeys, but no one walks the exact same path. So to me, that's how I define first generations. And I just invite guests of all walks of life. I can have guests that some that are suffering from specific mental illness to share their story. I've had an ex-UFC fighter that came on to share their story. I've had some entrepreneurs and some an army general just to share and give perspective to my listeners, right? And sometimes, actually most of the times, they have their little nuggets that help them get through hardships, and usually these little nuggets are little takeaways from each episode. But how I got started with this podcast is because I was actually going through divorce, and it was a pretty low point in my life, and essentially got to the point where I lost my voice, not literally, but I couldn't even speak because I was so rattled from it, right? So one of my very good friends, shout out to Donald Lee if he listens to this, he challenged me to start a podcast, and I decided, you know what, challenge accepted, because I don't like backing out on a challenge, right? So essentially, yeah, I started a podcast, and I decided I wanted to interview people from all walks of life and share perspective. So hence this is how I got it started. And the most gratifying thing is, helping people or the listeners, if they find value in this, it's one of the most gratifying feelings ever, because you're giving value out, and it's helping change somebody's life. Like, that's the best feeling I can ever ask for.
Yeah, and it doesn't even cost all that much money, because podcasting or just any social media platform, with the powers of the internet, with the series of tubes, like, you can impact other people's lives, and you don't need to be a quote unquote influencer with 10K, 100K, million plus followers of subscribers. Like, you can make a difference in your own community, friends of friends, and just even just a small community of people, just with a microphone. Like, if you guys are thinking about a podcast or doing something, I suggest you seriously consider it and then try it for a while and see if it suits you. If you don't like it, then you can just stop. But really try to do it for a certain period of time. But anyways, I think it's great that you started the podcast. What can I ask? What is it that made you guys divorce, you and your wife? What was the breaking point there?
Yeah, of course. So the breaking point was, so I was actually in an interracial relationship. So we came from different backgrounds, right? So my wife was half German, half Irish. Or ex-wife was half German, half Irish, and me being, I'm like Canadian born Chinese. So for myself, I think the biggest thing or why we came to divorce is because for me, I was always working. It got to the point where, I'd be working 60, 70 hours a week, and I'm an accountant by trade. So yeah, again, I'm working long hours. And to me, in my mindset and from how I grew up watching my parents grow up, it's like, hey, and I think this, I can speak for the majority of the Asian male role, I guess, is that we go out and work, right? From a very traditional sense, the males go out and work, they slave away, or not, maybe slave's not a good word, but, they go out and work, bring in the income, and, you know, um, so that's what I did. And I neglected her. And then eventually we had a falling out. It got to the point where, I wasn't meeting her needs and she wasn't meeting my needs. And it got to the point where we couldn't even have a conversation with each other. Right. So, essentially that's this falling out. And I say like, there's probably more to it, but the way I look at it, yeah, I was just working, man, just taking on that, doing what I know, doing what I've seen my parents do, like do while growing up. I'm taking that on where, I thought it's about, I wasn't living in the present. I'm always working, thinking about the future, bringing in money. We want that house. We want these, the two luxury cars. We want to have a good place and setting for our kids. And the fact that it was interracial, I wanted to make sure like my kids didn't have to go through the diversity I had to go through, because I think you can also relate. Like if you're not, what's a Caucasian? I'll put it that way. In a Caucasian dominant community, it's noticeable. Kids notice that kind of stuff, right? So I want to make sure, like, I want to put my kids or the future kids, in a scenario where they can succeed without having to face the same adversities that I had.
Yeah, in
So
other words, it's better to be a minority if you're rich. Yeah, it's
yeah,
better to have resources because it's like, oh, there's this Chinese kid or there's this Korean kid. There's this black kid in our all white neighborhood, but oh, they're rich. Okay. I want to hang out with them and be their friends.
right.
So yeah, I mean it's like yeah, it's you might be different, but hey, at least you're it it's what's that saying? It's better to cry in a Lamborghini than a Toyota Civic or something like that,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
so I mean I guess there's truth to that, and I think that's interesting, that you took on after your father, I assume, and other Asian
Mhm.
men in your community, because like, I feel the same way. My dad did that, where he went out all day and worked and tried to bring bread to the table at home, and so I will always appreciate him for that. And I think it's great that you are at least self-aware at this point to know that you had some different like cultural personal values with your wife, because if we don't resolve some of these things, or at least know how to communicate and reconcile these things with other people around us, whether same culture, ethnicity or not, then we're destined for conflict, and that might be unresolvable. So if you were to get in a relationship again with, say, another white woman, another Caucasian, or someone of a different ethnicity, do you think you would do better about it? Do you think you would kind of like change your values and your work ethic a bit to accommodate the other person, or do you think you would
100%.
fall into the same pattern?
100%. I think like I would definitely change. It's actually funny because like that whole part too, that whole divorce, like it was eye opening. It was a moment in my life where I had to pick myself back up, but during that journey, I go back. You go back into like I kind of jumped into the rabbit hole of self development, and I had to reflect. Okay, what could I have done better? You know, instead of pointing fingers at, oh, she did this, she did that, or I did this or I did that. It's like it's about taking responsibility, right? So it's about reflecting. Okay, what could I have done better? How do I prevent this again? Is there something I like maybe I did? And you know what? Like during that process, it's like holy crap. Because back then I'm like I couldn't understand. I'm like I'm working my ass off for our future here. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't get it. Like I'm trying to get us what we want, but then now I do understand, and I think a big thing too for myself, and I'm not sure if you feel the same too, but as growing up in Canada or North America, we, at least my parents had, I think the majority of immigrants would have, or immigrant families would have a survival type of mindset where, if you have a roof over your head, if you have clothes, you have food, if you're eating food, you're good to go, right? And that's the main thing. And a lot of the intangibles, such as, spending time, quality time, that's not as much a word, right? Because parents were always working. So to me, I've realized that I neglected my ex-wife. Because why? I didn't realize that was never a thing until I dug deep down inside me and, figured out, hey, I felt like I was neglected too, but I thought that was the norm. But it shouldn't be the norm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it shouldn't be the norm. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
100%. And so this is the beauty of our podcasting adventure, bro, is that we have the time and the privilege and the duty, I think, to be reflective and to seek different perspectives and be introspective and figure out like how we work, because our parents sure as hell, our hustling immigrant ass parents, didn't have the luxury that we do to think about life and like, relationship with our families and psychology and like, pick through our past and pick our brains as to how we tick and function. Like they just didn't have that time and that privilege. And so as an adult, especially over the years, and since I came to Korea, became an adult, paid rent for myself, and I'm just like, oh, life can be difficult just to make a living, just to work a job or make some money, just to provide for yourself, just to keep your shit together. It takes a lot of energy. But then I can't imagine having to go to another country, not speaking that language, with, I don't know, one, two, three kids to provide for. And it's just always go, go, go. And you don't have the time to talk with your wife or your kids about your feelings because your parents were super abusive to you. That's just my parents' example. So now as an adult, I am able to understand where my parents were coming from. When I was growing up, I hated my parents. I thought they were, and even into my early adulthood, my early 20s, I actually saw them as evil people. I saw them as like, whatever you want to call it, like they have narcissistic personality disorder, or they're bipolar, or they're traumatized and all this shit. And I'm not even saying that some of that stuff isn't true. But what I realize now is that instead of villainizing them as I did most of my life, now I want to glorify them. Now I want to worship them as my heroes, because I am the kind of person who goes on extremes. So I went through one pendulum swing of being, I'm American, I'm individualist, I'm westernized, and this is my identity. So anything that's like Eastern, Confucian, hierarchical, like I gotta, obey my parents and honor them. Well, fuck them, because they didn't respect me. They neglected me. They don't listen to me. So if we're talking from like a perspective of like Western voluntarism, like Aaron, if you don't want to be on this podcast, you don't want to spend time with me, like I have no right over your time. You know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
like, for our mutual benefit, for connection, right? So when it comes to business and trade and personal relationships, like I fully believe in this. Like, don't force people through guilt or manipulation to be with you, right? If you
Hmm.
you want what's best for yourself on all humanity, then you don't want to force. Maybe we're not a match, Aaron. Maybe this is just a one night stand, and this just isn't meant to be, Aaron. So if it doesn't work out in advance, I'm sorry, but
Hey, but it'll be a wonderful one night stand, right?
oh baby, yes, it'll be a wonder nightstand. So,
Yeah.
anyways, so I went from this pendulum swing of being like, I'm this way, and like as a rebellion, as a reaction towards like my background and my parents' psychology and the way they treated me. But then as an adult, in even though there was a lot of pain involved, in the heart of my Western individualist pursuit for self-actualization and self-knowledge, in the heart of that was that I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to be the best human being that I possibly could. I want to be kind and compassionate, hardworking, successful, magnanimous, like all the glorious visions of who I could be, the perfect, most beautiful, great Gatsby-esque magnanimous motherfucker who loves humanity and just gives to the world. And that by the time he dies, people remember him as a legend, like as a benefactor to mankind. Like I want to be as close to that vision of myself as I can. So in that pursuit of that vision, I realized like I had to deal with the issues as we all do if we're honest with ourselves, with the issues of our past, our childhood, and our relationship with our parents, because this forms the basis of our psychology and the way we look at the world and how we deal with our loved ones and our girlfriend or boyfriend or husband, wife. So I went from the pendulum swing from this side to immersing myself in Asia, right, in Korea, and getting in touch with my roots and seeing the Korean way, seeing the Confucian, this traditionalist way. And I see the society where my parents come from. And now I see, and after talking to my cousins and other people in my family, we're the lucky ones because my parents are the ones who moved to America. So I talked to one cousin, like, I was like, cousin, like now that I can speak Korean, I can tell you this, like, I hated mom and dad because this. He's like, bro, what's your problem, man? You speak English. You went to America, motherfucker. Like we all struggle. I struggle. I mean, my cousin, he works a good job at a good company and he's doing well for himself. But, he's like, but you went to America and your parents, like they stuck together. And so you're the lucky one. So like now as an adult, I can appreciate the struggles that my parents made. And now when I was a kid, while I villainized them, now I want to glorify them. And I see that this is actually the best way to go and even if there is truth to whatever resentments or whatever, like ill will or whatever they did, they neglected me or they abused me in this way, and I still deal with it. Now I'm like, what the kind of person do I want to be? What would, as a Hyung told me, one of my good bros told me, imagine how would Bruce Lee act in this situation, or whoever your idol is, whoever like the person you want to be is, like, what would how would Great Gatsby or Bruce Lee deal with his parents? Would he throw a tantrum like, Mom, when I was a kid, you didn't do this, and like, you didn't ensure that I'd speak Korean or whatever? And you think Bruce Lee would act to his parents like that? Do you think Great Gatsby would act to his parents like that? How would these people act towards their families, even if they have a disagreement, even when things are hard, or even when things annoy them? And I'm just like, I gotta change.
Yeah,
and it's hard, but that's to wrap up my point. Like now, I love my parents, and now I want to glorify them. And so I see the hustle culture, and going back to like, that's all they knew and that's all they could do. And if you and I were in their shoes, maybe our father's shoes or our mother's shoes, could we really have done much better? And I think that's not for us to judge or say. And so I would rather think more charitably towards our own parents and their generation, like all our Asian immigrant parents, not just my parents, but for me, like, even though we just met and I'm thinking about your parents, I'm thinking about all, American, Canadian diaspora immigrant parents. Like our struggles are so similar. We're all Asian. We all come from this culture, from the other side of the planet. We all struggle. And I just think of like, all our families are so similar, and I've never said this on a show, but I kind of think of, when I see like my Chinese American friend's mom, I'm just like, this woman is like my mom, because we're Asian, but the struggle is similar and the culture is similar. So I kind of think of all Asian families as like extension of my family. Even when I go to, if I go to Thailand or Vietnam, I meet like a Vietnamese friend's mom or something like that. I'm just like, this is an Asian ass mom. And like, I love them for who they are, even though like it drives me nuts sometimes. So I want to honor our parents with this podcast, and we are lucky because we can talk about our feelings on our podcast, bro, but we don't have to struggle like they did. So, anyways, I'm really glad that you started your podcast and that you're able to have the self-awareness and, that you find that you're willing to change. Right. And so
100%.
Yeah. This show for me is kind of venting about my parents and my past, but also I'm trying to just get that out of the way, get that off my chest, just so that I can, I want to be like, bruh, negative energy, my parents, why didn't they do this? So then I can transition. So then I can catch the listeners who also have the similar issues, if whoever's listening out there. So then I can be like, bro, my parents, but now like I understand where they come from, and actually I love them. They're amazing human beings, and I'm grateful to be their spawn, to be their offspring. And if I can live this amazing life, and if I can be this awesome, if I have this, if it's in my blood or genes or whatever, then if I am this amazing person that I am, I must come from good stock. Do you know what I mean? So if my parents are good stock, they just didn't have the same opportunities that I had to be educated, to be well-rounded, to be organized, read books on psychology on how to, like live a happy life with like meaningful relationships where you communicate and you're empathic with each other and your children. I can do that thanks to their sacrifices. So now I don't want to shit talk my parents anymore. I want to honor them. I want to honor them
100%.
until people are just like, Mom, you're totally changed. Like a year or two ago, you just talk shit about your mom all the time whenever you talked about family. But now you say that you love your mom and things have never been better. Things have never been better. Miracles do come true. I'm fucking serious. Like I never thought after all these years that I could say to my mom, like, I love you. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for all that you've done for the family. Like, and I have to do that now. I have to be especially good to my mom because my father passed away in 2016. So it's now like I have to, I feel the ghost of my father, the blue Star Wars ghost of my father, like putting his hand on my shoulder. Sometimes my mom, when we talk, I'll shut up. I'll just finish with this. Sometimes I talk with my mom. We talk about the past. We talk about father passing away, and she gets emotional and she starts crying. And when she does that, a part of me is like, oh, God damn it, Mom, not in public. I know, like you're still getting over it. You've been here, I get it, but like, can you please stop crying? But then I feel the blue ghost hand of my dad putting his hand on my shoulder, like in Star Wars. And then he says, "Oh, son, you are the man now, and you have to take care of my wife because you are now the man. She did everything for us, for you, and she put up with my shit for many years. So now you have to be good son to her." And I was like, "Okay, Dad." But I imagine the voice. Maybe this is because I'm crazy. Maybe I'm hearing voices in my head, but that the thought comes in my head. The thought is like, I imagine without my own, I mean, you could call this voices in my head. You're like, okay, like everyone listening, mime is crazy. Mime time is crazy. He's hearing voices in his head. But I just imagine, what would my dad say if he was here to see me with like hanging out with my mom in a coffee shop or having a meal and she's crying? And I think my dad would say like, you have to be the man now. I love you. Maybe I'm sorry I couldn't have been a better father, but I did everything I can. And you're better than me, Mime, and you will go places that I'll never see. So you have to live this life, and you're the motherfucking God, mate. You're my child, you're my son. I love you, and please take care of your mom.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do with this podcast: is just honor our parents.
It's. I think it's awesome too because we also have the opportunity to be that, like you said, like our parents have sacrificed so much. But we also have this opportunity to be the change for our next generation, for our next blood to, improve too, right? So to break out of those stereotypical bonds and to have improved or have more effective methods of communications than like you said, right? And I think going back to what you said with your dad, like, you know what? I think I wanted to ask you this. Do you feel like it's also a sense of moral duty? Because I personally feel that, let's say in North America, I notice a lot of my friends, they do have this, a lot of my North American friends that tend to be Caucasian, they kind of have a disconnect with their parents. Like, for example, like you said, like, let's say if one of the parents is alone now, they'll still continue on with their life, but they don't kind of have that sense of duty of taking on additional roles to help replace the missing half, right? I feel that in Asia, or growing up from Asia, or if you from immigrant families from Asia, we still have that sense of moral duty still instilled in us. Like I feel that when you said that, I could relate. Like I could totally relate. I still have both my parents, but it's like when there are times my dad wasn't there and my mom was alone, it's automatically the brain is like switch on. I got to do what my dad would have done. You know what I'm saying? So I'm curious if you felt that.
If I feel what exactly, like the pressure or
Like,
a sense of moral duty to look after the parents.
yeah, the sense of moral duty to step into like the role of your dad
Yeah,
and
I
take
mean,
on the responsibilities.
uh, that's an interesting question. Do I feel like it's a moral duty? Depends on how you define your morality, right, and your values, I
Yeah,
guess. But I would say yes. Not necessarily even to fill in the role of my dad.
yeah,
In that sense, like there is part of that, but just because, um, like in a how do I say this? Like maybe 8 years ago, I would have said it's my moral duty to separate to from my parents,
hmm,
because they were like manipulative and abusive and neglectful. So what do I owe them? This kind of, so yeah, they fed me and they took care of me, but like that's what a parent is supposed to do. I wasn't asked to be born. So coming from that framework,
yeah,
people would argue like, okay, so a parent fed you and they clothed you or whatever, but like you didn't ask to be born. So if they're just like, if they're abusive and whatever, and they fucked up like your psychology and you can't have a healthy relationship with people, like, and you're let loose in society, maybe you're a sociopath because your parents are sociopaths and you're manipulative and you're a compulsive liar or, whatever, human negative dysfunctions a person may have. Like, do you really owe it to them to take care of them? And some people
hmm,
would argue no. Comes from a Western individualist perspective. So I still may see the truth in that. And every family situation is different, and everyone has to figure out the truth of what's best for themselves. Maybe in certain family situations, the best thing that you can do as an individual is just try to find peace and forgiveness in your own heart. But realistically, practically, you shouldn't deal with that person. You shouldn't face that person. You can't be in the same room. You know, you do the best that you can.
hmm,
But for me now, that I don't see, obviously now I don't feel that as my moral duty. Now I see it as like, oh, my mom did the best that she could given the situation, and especially because I'm fortunate enough that we have a relationship where we can talk to each other. Like it's a two-way street. Not everyone has this. I'm very lucky. It feels like a two-way street. So then it's just like, oh, when I listen to her and I hear her struggles and I vent to her and she listens and she apologizes. And then we grow and we connect. And now we're closer as a result. So then, even though my mom ran away like 6 times when I was a kid, but now like we talk and I understand why she did that. So when I was a kid, I hated her and I resented her for running away. And every time she came back with those crocodile tears, I thought like, mom, like just go away. Like I don't want you here because you're just gonna run away. I don't trust you. I hate you. Go away. But now, like as an adult, listen to her side of the story because I can speak Korean now and I can communicate with her. And she has her own side, and maybe I still have my own skepticism as her internal motives. But I want to believe that she came back because she thought that was the right thing to do. Not because she ran out of money, but because, like, in her mind, God, she's a very devout Christian. God was telling her, like, you have to go back and try to patch things up with the family because that's the best way to hold the family together for your son's benefit. Even though everything is fucked, this is what I, the Lord, am telling you to do, Mime's mom. So that's what mom says to me is like, God was telling me I needed to come back. And actually, I see the logic in it. So I see her side of the story. I see why she ran away or why she acted like this or that. When I say, mom, when you did this or you didn't do this as a kid, like this is how I felt and I really hated you. And then she says, like, I'm sorry about that, mime. I was doing the best that I can. And please understand the situation, this, and that. It was very hard to live with your dad. And then I say, and like, I didn't even have anyone to talk to about these things for decades. And now, like, now I can talk to you, mime. So then I'm just like, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. A lot of it. It was just, we couldn't talk. But now I learned Korean. So I had to put the work in to learn the Korean, to learn my mother tongue, to speak with my mother. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, Aaron, like the moral duty I feel to my mom now is that I owe it to her. She deserves it because she put up living with my dad, and she didn't ask to be a mother either, originally. She was just like thrown into motherhood at an early age, very unprepared. So if I want to be an empathic and like noble, magnanimous human being, I have to understand the perspective of my own mom. I have to be charitable and at least listen to her. And then so it's it is kind of like an Eastern Confucian, like Korean thing, but it's also a very Western individualist thing. Who do I want to be? I want to be the best person that I can be. And now I feel like the duty to my parents is the best thing for me as an individual. And now I see the divide between like Eastern Confucian hierarchical society and Western individualist, individualism versus the Asian collectivism versus like Western individualism. I see these as maybe a false dichotomy, because in my Western individualist journey to be the best version of myself, I had to reconcile with my Eastern Confucian Korean background. And in that, find the yin and the yang. In Korean, we call it umyang, right? We find the yin and the yang. And I say, the individual works with the collective, and the collective also helps out the individual. It's not one or the other. It's both. And that's the beauty of life. And that's how we're all here, because, I love my life and I'm here. And I love myself. I think I'm very beautiful, and I think I'm noble and all this shit, right? I want to be. But then I think, I wouldn't be here if not for my parents. And, my parents wouldn't be here if it weren't for their parents, and the Korean society as a whole. So how can I divorce myself from my Korean identity when all these people before me struggled and, they survived wars and famines and all this shit? Just so for me to go to America and complain about my problems, about like being the only Asian in my community. I'm actually the lucky one. And it actually works in my own benefit to change my mind about it, to see that I'm the lucky one. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, I feel the moral duty from a both Eastern way and a Western way as an individualist when it comes to serving my mom. Yeah. But I'm still working these things out. I'm not perfect, folks.
It's a journey, right? Yeah. Because in my mind too, I think what's super fascinating with your story is that, and I'm not sure if you've discussed this in a prior episode or not, but something that I still struggle to this very day is identity, especially where if I go back to, let's say, Hong Kong or China, the locals there will be able to tell that obviously they won't recognize me as one of their own.
Yeah, man, you're fucking Wegukin. That's the word for foreigner in Korean.
Wegukin?
Yeah, so, Wegukin.
So do you still feel the same, even though you've lived you're back in Korea now for 9 years and you're able to speak the dialect and the tongue? Do you still get the same that kind of impression too from a lot of the locals, or has
100%, bro?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, did you want to continue? Because otherwise I'll talk for another 5 minutes.
No, please continue on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do talk about this on my podcast. I touch upon it here and there, but like this podcast, if I haven't said it already, Mime Time is a show about the Asian diaspora experience and overcoming our identity struggle to become the best version of ourselves. This is my working podcast introduction. It might change and tweak as the show goes on, but yeah, I still feel that, and people can just tell, right? People can just still vibe with the whatever hand gestures or whatever. So I've come to a point of peace about that. So that's exactly the kind of stuff I want to talk about in my podcast. Like for any Asian diaspora or any Asian immigrants, yeah, if you go back to the motherland, surprise, surprise, people can tell you didn't grow up there, right? And even if you speak the language perfectly or with perfect pronunciation, people tell. People just know, and I still get that, and it used to bother me a lot, but I had to grow the fuck up. I had to realize this is not something I need to take personally, and I did the best I fucking can, and no one can judge me. Because if no one has gone through what I did, no one grew up Okay, I'm gonna say this, but if anyone grew up the way that I did, please fucking contact me so we can have a drink or we can have a chat, right? But no one grew up the way that I did, being the only kid in an Asian neighborhood, not knowing their own mother tongue, despite living with their mother, with their parents, right? Like a lot of adoptees, right? Asian adoptees in America, North America, they at least speak English with their adoptive, their adoptive white parents. I didn't even have that with my own Korean parents. Me being Korean blood and having living with my Korean parents, I didn't even get to have that because they were too busy working and fighting with each other and my brothers. I'm the only person between me and my two brothers and my two parents. There's five of us, right? So I'm the only one who didn't grow up speaking Korean. So I feel like I'm defective. Something's wrong with me. I feel guilt and shame for not knowing my own mother tongue. And it really fucked with me in such a deep way that, it led to a lifelong sense of like identity crisis. And last week, I published an episode called Why Learning Korean and Hangul, the Korean script, is the proudest achievement of my life. So I still feel it. And I highly recommend anyone, who's new to the show, you listen to that episode that I put out last week about Hangul Proclamation Day, because like it really encapsulates a lot of my journey, why I came to Korea and how I went on my journey of self-transformation. But I still, despite the fact I can read and fill out forms in legal Korean, legal documents in Korean, and I have a Korean girlfriend, we text each other in Korean, I talk to my mom in Korean. I am undeniably Korean at this point, but I will never be Korean, as in my conversation with Kyle. As Asian diaspora, will always be somewhere in the middle. Some people are more in the middle. Some people are a bit more than the other. It's all different shades of yellow, if you will. I don't know. And it's beautiful. And how I reconcile that, right? Being Chewe Dongpo, being an overseas Korean living in Korea, I look at it in I think about it in a couple of ways. One, you can't have it all. So I grow up in America, and then I come back to Korea, having grown up in America, being very Americanized. And then I just expect Korean people to accept me as one of their own 100%. Like you can't, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of greedy in a way to expect that you can have everything. There are some Korean Americans who are like perfectly fluent, and it's just like back and forth. They're just like 100% American when they're America and 100% Korean in Korea. And some people, it's harder for Korean people to tell the difference. Maybe I'm a bit envious of those people, but they didn't have the journey and the struggle that I did, which I appreciate and I wouldn't trade for now. So one is like, don't be too greedy. You can't have it all. Like we were lucky. I was lucky to even grow up in America and grow up and have English as my first language, so that I could come to Korea and start like tutoring English and make decent money compared to the average Korean person who can't teach English. So how can I complain about Korean people not accepting me in this society when this society compensates or rewards people like me for speaking English so handsomely? So I have that advantage. So if I would be like, oh, it's unfair to Korean people that the Korean people they treat me differently. Well, then Korean people are like, well, fuck you, mime, because you grew up in America, motherfucker. You were lucky. You got out of Haejoseon. You got out of this place. So consider yourself lucky. So one, you can't have it all. Don't be too greedy. You can't just accept wherever you go in the world. Not everyone's going to accept you 100% for who you are, blah, blah, blah. Even if you grow up in America, right? As an Asian minority, not everyone's going to accept you for who you are, however you define that. Mm-hmm. So you'll always be kind of out of place as diaspora or a minority or a third culture kid. You'll always be kind of out on the outside. And you know what, dude? It's not a fucking big deal. It's okay. Because you have the privilege of diverse experiences and diverse perspective. So while life is sure as hell not fair, and it may have given you a lot of trauma and like confusion growing up, on the flip side of that is the beauty of like the wisdom of different cultures and perspectives and the different experiences that you have. So, like, I don't know how you feel when you go back to Hong Kong, but you might feel like a little awkward or a little shame, like, oh, I'm an outsider. Now I've just embraced it 100%. And I believe that anyone like Korean adoptee or Korean American or Korean Canadian, Korean Japanese, they can find something similar. I think if that's what I believe. I could be wrong, but if you didn't grow up speaking Korean, you want to come to Korea and you learn Korean, you get in touch with the culture as much as you can. What you will learn: one, don't be too greedy. You can't have it all. Consider yourself lucky you grew up diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Two, not everyone. Well, yeah. Another thing. Two, not everyone has the fortune of being diaspora. So again, consider yourself lucky. And not everyone has to be a mainlander. Not everyone has to be like from the motherland. Like you, destiny or God or Buddha or whatever gave your family a particularly different destiny so that you had to be away from the motherland. But you, not knocking on mainlanders or saying they're not special or whatever, but we're special in our own way. So we have that privilege. And with that privilege, we can come back to the motherland, and there will be enough good people who accept you for who you are if you just put in the effort, and you're a good person.
Yeah.
So sorry, I keep repeating myself. Number one, don't be too greedy. You can't have it all. Consider yourself lucky. But number two, even if you learn all the Korean or your mother tongue and your culture, and when you bow to people at the perfect 45 degrees or whatever, and your pronunciation's fucking perfect, and you can write a thesis on Korean history and ancient Joseon dynasty, like political relations or whatever, you'll never be Korean because you grew up in the West, or like you were already Americanized, or you were already, grew up in another culture. And you know what? That's okay. It's fucking okay. It's okay to be different. And you can do it even if you tried. And I tried, at least to the best of my ability, when I wasn't partying and drinking and trying to get laid. I did learn Korean, and I did learn Korean. I did practice day by day, and I still do. And even if I were to like stop all my work and I get like $1 million, I don't have to work for like years, and I study Korean, I practice Korean, and I make only Korean friends, and I speak Korean for like 5 years. In my heart of hearts, I will still always be very like Americanized, me, American mime. That's what I think. So I think there would be value in such an experience in connecting. But now I realize like I'm comfortable in my own skin now. So when people, I meet Korean people, I say, they asked me like, hey, like, where are you from? Are you from America? And I was like, oh, like, yes. And like, I came here like 9 years ago, and like, I'm very happy, when I tell them my story, just like how I tell you, like, yeah, I came here to find myself. I didn't speak any Korean. I didn't have any friends. But now I live a great life, and I love my life in Korea. And I'm very proud to be of Korean heritage. And I love Korea. I love Korean people. I love you. I don't necessarily say that to Korean strangers that I meet the first time, because they'll be like, well, who the fuck is this guy? But I genuinely feel that. I genuinely feel that. I love being Korean. I love my Korean side. I love my Korean heritage. I love my chinky Asian eyes. When I was a kid and kids do this to me, and like, I mean, some people might get triggered. I don't know about you, but like when the kids, they do this chinky eyes and say ching chang chong.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's still like a sore spot for a lot of Asians, but for me, I'm like, I think it's funny now. Like,
100%.
For me, I'm over it. Like, it doesn't bother me as much. And now, like, I'm proud of like my Asian features and my Asian heritage. I'm proud to be Korean. When I hated being Korean, I wished I was white. I don't know if you ever wished that you were white, but I used to wish like I was white or black or Mexican, because at least I wouldn't be Asian. I wouldn't be Korean. I wouldn't be the only Korean Asian kid on the block. And now, like, I'm so proud. And I had to go through all that shit and all that confusion and identity crisis to come back to Korea, to get in touch with my roots, and be like annoyed and pissed off when the taxi driver asked me, where I'm from. And now, like, I just smile. I'm just like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm lucky to be alive. I'm proud of who I am. I love Korean people. I love Asian people. I love all Asian peoples. And I want to heal the struggle. I want to heal the pain, bro.
Yeah. Dude, that's so awesome. Like I'm actually so happy just hearing that, because it's for myself, I never really had it that bad, in my opinion. I don't think I had it that bad when it came to growing up and the racism. For me too. Now I just laugh, and I think it also depends on the intent. So I find that in North America, a lot of the intent is of the racism is unintentional racism, but it's still racism. But then when it comes to intentional racism, that's where I have a problem. And for me, growing up, whenever it was intentional, I'm a very confrontational person.
Mm.
So I again, like, school fights. Oh, whose fault is it? Oh, it's the Asian kid. He started shit, right? Because you know, unfortunately, because I'm different, right? Or I would think reflecting maybe because I'm different, or maybe because I didn't speak up, or I'm known for being confrontational, right? But yeah, it's like you said, it's like when you go. I feel that when a human being goes through a certain level of growth, it's like, hey, like if they're trying to be racist to you or even just provoke you, not let's go beyond racism, just provoke you. It's like you just laugh it off, brush it off. Like there's so much more to life than like this person. Obviously, I personally feel that if a person's provoking me, to me, I look how my perspective is like is they're just miserable and they're trying to share their miserableness with me. And you know what? I have the power to just walk away, even no matter how many disgusting things they can say. I'll walk away and I'm gonna go live my best life, but that's how I perceive it too, man.
Yeah, because we're too busy with our lives. We have shit to do, bro. We have
Yeah.
awesome lives to lead and like podcasts to produce and our first generations to live,
Hmm.
right? So like if you want to and actually like how I look at it is like it's okay to get angry and it's okay to get sad, it's okay to get depressed, and it's okay to feel lost. But for me, like I just like don't waste because I spent too much time in my life, too many moments in depression, negativity, and some victimhood mentality, being like, because I'm Asian, I'm the only Asian kid of black, so people are of course going to judge me. People are of course going to like be racist toward me and call me a chink or something like that. So that's also a problem I had growing up. And luckily, I kind of snapped out of that, or I gradually realized that wasn't the way to go in my teen years, to always assume that people are going to be out to judge me. I personally think, and this could be a trigger point, a soft spot for a lot of Asian North Americans, but I think a lot of us have this problem that we have a victimhood mentality.
Yeah.
It's not fucking cool when someone calls you a chink, and it's not cool when, when you feel left out, or it's like I've been there, but you can't let that taint your perspective on society and life as a whole, so that every time you meet someone and they say some kind of remark when there's no negative intent of it to have a negative reaction to it. I think that is such a fucking waste of time. And so I know because like I realized I was sabotaging myself and potential friendships or interactions with people, just because like you always have your guard up, and now I'm just like I don't want to have my guard up, not in that sense. I just want to walk freely. So and now like people ask, like if I go back to the States, like here's an interesting thing. Now people ask me, Mime, where are you from? If I were to go back to the States, for example. And now I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is an interesting question, because I did grow up in America my whole life. So I did this thing when I was a kid when I would be like, I'm from North Carolina, or I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. But where are you really from? What kind of Asian are you? Shout out to
Yeah.
What Kind of Asian Are You podcast and But Where Are You Really From podcast. Great, great podcast. And I get so triggered. And now having lived in Korea, trying to get in touch with my Korean side, trying to be Korean. Now I'll say, I'm Korean, but I grew up in Rhode Island. Or I'll say I'm Korean American.
Mhm.
Depending on how they ask questions. If they ask me where you're from, I'll say, I'm from Rhode Island. Again, it depends on who I'm talking to. And like,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that anymore. Like now, when I was a kid, when everyone asked you, where are you from? Oh my God, what a trigger, what a loaded question. Ugh. They're always going to call me a chink and go back to China. Not even
Mhm.
Chinese. Not even Japanese. Now I can just laugh about it. But when I was a kid, everything was so serious. But now I'm just like, it's not a big deal. I'm not saying don't stick up for yourself, but now it's much more fun for me to just laugh it all off. So
Yeah.
wherever I go, I here in Korea, or if I go travel in Japan or Vietnam or Thailand and America, people ask you, "Matt, where are you from?" And some people will think I'm American. Some people think I'm Korean. Like, you're from Korea. Oh, I like Oppan Gangnam Style,
Yeah.
Oppan Gangnam Style, Sai na. And I'm just like, yeah, I love Oppan Gangnam Style. Yeah, I'm Korean. Someone says like, oh, I really like the kimchi jjigae. Like, yeah, I love it too. I'm Korean.
Yeah.
So like, I don't get as offended. Oh, BTS? I'm just like, stop. I'm just kidding. I like BTS actually. So, um, but I mean, I know that's just where I am. And so I just want to put that out there. There are different perspectives and experiences, and I'm not trying to knock on anyone. Maybe poke fun just a little bit,
Yeah.
but like, I just want to share that, like, I don't think people need to take things so seriously. And if you reframe these experiences, positive or negative in your past, then you can reframe them in a way that helps you become the ideal version of yourself that you want to be. And that's what I am now. I am the motherfucking dream, bro. Like, I love who I am. And I put the time in. I put the time in the mime. And that's how I'm here today, living this dream-like life where I speak Korean, the impossible dream that I thought I could never achieve. And I feel like people love me and respect me for who I am. And I have great relationships with amazing people, people who are successful in all meaningful ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, we're exotic.
We're exotic, bro. We're extremely exotic. We're actually not just in like our North American context, but even when we come back to the motherland for a cheeky visit, we're exotic. We're our own unique fusion flavor.
Oh yeah.
As my friend says, my Korean American friend says, we're like a kimchi cheeseburger at McDonald's in Korea. Because in Korea they might not kimchi cheeseburger. That's what I say. He says a bulgogi burger.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Korean bulgogi, but it's like Korean
it's
beef.
Bulgogi, right? Oh yeah. Bulgogi, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, you know bulgogi. Oh. Yeah. So they'll sell that at McDonald's in Korea. It's like a cheeseburger, McDonald's cheeseburger, but with bulgogi in it. So my friend Danny Cho, his joke is that, like, as Korean Americans, we're like a bulgogi cheeseburger. It's kind of like a burger. Like, if an American eats it, they'll be like, yeah, it's kind of like a burger, but it's not like an American cheeseburger. That's not American. And then a Korean person will eat it and be like, yeah, that's bulgogi. It's Korean, but it's not really Korean. So, or something in the middle. And you know what? Like, that's a cute, fun way to look at it. Like, I'm a fucking kimchi bulgogi cheeseburger, bro. And I always will be when I die. No matter how much bulgogi kimchi I try to be, no matter how much I try to kimchify myself, that cheeseburger side is always going to be there. That greasy cholesterol, hidden packed cheeseburger is good. And I love all of me. I love every single bit of who I am. And I'm always trying to be a better person and change the things that I don't like about myself. Mm-hmm. But I'm doing the best that I can. And I'm grateful to be alive, like, every day, bro.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious too. Like, I kind of want to.
I feel bad because I'm talking too much.
No. It's all good. And to be fair, it's a flowing conversation, right? Like, unless it's not, let me know. But I want to ask you about your opinions on stepping out of your comfort zone, because I know that speaking with a lot of individuals growing up, and for myself, again, growing up, I'm very lucky. I'm very, like, I was part of the basketball team. So at diversity, like, most of the kids on the team were black. And then you have me, and then they call me Blackanese, and vice versa, right? But, like, unfortunately, for a lot of kids that are a little bit more, like, fobbish, or more, they're not born in North America, but they come, like, when they're, like, in grade 5, where their English is not their first language. Speaking with a lot of them, there's obviously a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications, right? But again, a lot of it has to deal with breaking out that comfort zone. So for you, it sounds like you broke out your comfort zone when you moved to Korea with that one-way ticket, right? Would it be 100%. Fair to say that?
Yeah, I went I went into every single fucking comfort zone. How do I say this? I went out of every single fucking comfort zone I could have tried, and I still do. I still
Yeah.
do. And that has been the most fucking rewarding thing of my whole life, because
Yeah.
if you always stay in your comfort zone, then you're never going to achieve anything meaningful. That's just how life is.
Hmm.
Because like I almost killed myself 10 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
then I thought, like, I mean, that talk about going out of your comfort zone, right? Comfortable is being alive, but then, or life is so uncomfortable, like the more comfortable thing might be to kill yourself. That's kind of a weird way. Maybe I was trying to go into another comfort zone, but then I realized that was too uncomfortable. So I'm not encouraging anyone to go into out of their comfort zone into that one. If the comfort zone is suicide, then yes, get out of that comfort zone. Um, but I just thought, like, fuck it. Like, my life has been so miserable up until now. But if this is a second chance at life, if this is a second chance, maybe to get in touch with my roots and like find myself, then I'll just see where things go. So, like with any hard period or rut in any individual's life, like with your divorce or with me wanting to like kill myself, or like one of my bad breakups or my father passing away, all these tragic events in our lives are opportunities or catalysts for us to achieve something greater, right? They like a
100%.
period of suffering, kind of wakes you up. Like, what really matters? Like, how am I focusing my time? If like if I lose this, if I lose a loved one, or if I lose my life, like what could have been, what was wasted? What could I have
Hmm.
done better? That kind of thing. How could I change? Why does this happen? Why do I act with people this way? It caused me so much pain. I don't want the pain to happen like this again. How can I avoid it? How can I learn to change? How can I help other people avoid the same mistakes, become better people? So yeah, for me, I encourage people to get out of their comfort zone. For me, I had to do that, and I still do, and it's still hard. But
Hmm.
one comfort zone, as you will be very familiar, is like starting a podcast, like hitting people up for an episode, or just putting your voice out there, listening to. Oh, I hate the sound of my own voice. Oh, like I can't imagine. But then overcoming that comfort zone,
Yeah.
like the comfort zone of like walking up to a stranger at a bar, either guy or girl. Like, you just want to make a friend, make a connection. Maybe you want to get laid, but whatever it is, just putting yourself fucking out there, or going to open mics countless times to do stand-up comedy, or like do acoustic guitar covers and perform in front of the crowd. Maybe sometimes you bomb, maybe sometimes you do great and you get tips. I put myself out there a lot. And my only regret is I didn't do it more. My only regret is that I didn't try more. I didn't push myself harder every step of the way that I could have. But I did the best that I could at the same time. So I don't want to be too hard on myself. The balance is number one, you got to believe in yourself 100%. Because I came to Korea not knowing who I was and blah 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 blah. But like, I believed that I could transform. I believed that I could change, and I could become steps closer, take tangible steps towards becoming my dream self. So I did that, and every single time I, like, tried to get out of my shell and talk to a stranger in a bar, or like go up on stage and do like a set or play a song. Um, every single time I tried to open my mouth and speak Korean, it was all my childhood fucking trauma, all my lack of self-confidence, all my self-hatred, all my shame, all my guilt. You're just talking to a fucking stranger at a bar, motherfucker. Like, chill the fuck out. You're just having a conversation with a taxi driver. You're trying to stumble in Korean. Like, if I speak, because I learned Spanish for 6 years. So if I try speaking Spanish to people, even if I fumble, there's no negative emotion associated with it, because it's not tied to my identity and the feeling of shame that I have for not knowing Spanish. Right. So, but when I about to speak Korean to another Korean person, all the it's like a flashback of like all the shame and the resentment from my parents not teaching me Korean, and me going to Korean church and feeling awkward and feeling ashamed that I don't speak my mother tongue. That still happens every single fucking time I speak Korean to someone. And like, they don't understand something, where there's a miscommunication, whether it's like work or at the bank or with the taxi driver. There's some miscommunication, and just like that, I get triggered. Just like that, the past comes out. So I'm still struggling. I'm not struggling. Sometimes I struggle, but I am still working through these problems, but the fact is that it doesn't bother me nearly as much as it used to. So I'm living fucking proof. If you want to get out of your comfort zone, if you're like a Korean adoptee and you have resentments towards like your family, your adoptive family, your biological family, towards Korean people, you know, I'm there for you. I feel you. You know, if you're Asian diaspora or you're Chinese born Canadian, you know, or like you're Korean Japanese or something, and you feel the, you know, you feel uncomfortable speaking your own mother tongue, I'm there for you. I've been through it all in my own way. So yeah, I went through it. In going out of my comfort zone, that's where I found the treasures, and that's who I became. What I did. It's the hero's journey, right? Look at me on mime time. Oh, I'm a hero. I'm so narcissistic, right? But like everyone is the hero in their own journey. Everyone's a hero in their own movie. Everyone's, you know, self-centered for better or for worse. So if you're going to be the hero in your own journey, then do the things. And in the end, you're not going to die. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, so you make some mistakes. You know, you say something in Korean, they don't quite understand you, and maybe they make fun of you. Like this guy's retarded. So I'll say something in Korean, like when I first came to Korea, and then they'll be like, "Is this guy retarded? Is this guy Chinese?" You know, that's the funny thing. In America, I am Chinese, and I come to Korea, people ask me, "Are you Chinese?" Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, comfort zones. Everyone wants to stay in the comfort zone, but you know what's the biggest comfort zone? Staying in your mother's fucking womb. God bless your mother's womb. But in there, all your needs are taken care of, right? In your mother's womb, you have all the nutrients you need, oxygen. It's warm, it's comfortable. But then there's that great suffering, right? The moment of expulsion, and for you and for the mother. So in that intense pressure, like, you know, tectonic plates colliding against each other, and like the baby being, you know, pushed through the birth canal and all that shit, that crazy, traumatizing, messy shit, that is fucking life. And that's how families and nations and empires are born, literally. It's through that like you have to go out of your comfort zone. Because if you always stayed in your comfort zone, then you would have been just stuck in your mother's womb, and you wouldn't have been born. You know, like
that's how we grow. Yeah, like that's how we grow. That's it. I feel like it's the best way to learn. I'm with you, mine. It's like I wish I didn't do. I wish I embraced it more when I was younger. You know, and to me, like obviously, I'm not sure if obviously failure. I feel like in the Asian culture, failure is very frowned upon. Let's say if you fail a test, you come back home, come back home with like a 40% on your test. Like parents aren't going to approve of that.
Very dishonorable.
Right?
You are Asian, not Bijan or Cesian. Oh, ho, ho,
yeah. Or even if you get like a B, you know, it's like B. Like where's the A? B's for bitch. You know, like
that's a good one. I haven't heard that one.
You know, so like but it's okay to fail. Like at least in my opinion, like that's how we learn. Like if you're willing to fail, I'm not saying you're looking forward to it, but if you're willing to fail and willing to reflect, again, going back to that self-awareness, reflect why you failed, like that's like the whole life lesson right there in itself. And chances are, if you've done it once, you're probably not going to do it again, right?
Yeah, babies fail all the fucking time. Babies are the biggest fucking failures. But then if we're all fucking failures as babies, how do we at least know our mother tongue? How do we all at least learn one language as we develop? It's because we try as babies. We just copy what our parents say. Our parents talk to us, right? That's like we absorb it. We say, "Goo goo gaga, luga, papa, mama, papa. Oh, daddy, I don't like chicken." Right? I think that was Louis C.K., the comedian. He said that was his daughter's first words. Daddy, I don't like chicken. You know, and so it goes from goo goo goo, amma papa, amma na chicken shiro, na takogi shiro. You know, I don't like chicken. Daddy, I don't like chicken. How did they get from goo goo gaga to I don't like chicken? It's because they try for years, and then eventually they're able to mimic the sounds. And so that's how you learn any language as an adult. You goo goo gaga your fucking way through any language. And it can be any language. It's just harder as an adult trying to learn Korean, or as a Korean adult trying to learn English, because you're all socialized and you care about what other people think, and it's all fucked up. And so like you feel very shy. As a baby, you have no shame. You have no guilt. You steal another kid's toy, you feel shame. You don't feel shame. You have to get socialized into that, for better or for worse. so so yeah, all the moments I push myself out of the comfort zone, that like taking a deep leap. Looking back, now it feels like nothing, but at the time, it's like the world just stops, and then you say something, and you feel awkward, and you feel the shame, and you feel insecure. But babies don't feel like that, so you should just go through life like a baby, and mumble your way through all languages until you say like, I don't like chicken in any language.
Yeah.
전 닭고기 안 좋아해요. 치킨 싫어요. I don't like chicken. so, um, so, and it's never too late to start. And I'm not trying to. I don't want to. I will seriously encourage and recommend people consider anyone get in touch with their mother tongue and the roots, like yourself or anyone else. But I'm not going to push it on them, because everyone's life experience is different. This is just coming from me because I'm so fucked up, or I think I am. And that, like, for me, this was the best way to heal. So I want to market a bit to the audience out there who is going through a really hard time the way that I did with this whole identity shit. Because if you want to heal, I found a way. I think I did. I think I do. So, it's like, it's okay, man. Like, and you still have your Asian Chinese identity. If you want to get more in touch with it. Like, I wish I started earlier too, but like, I'm 29 now, so I was lucky that I started when I was 20. But if someone's 39, I don't want to like knock against them or say like it's not possible for them if it's something that they really want. If it's not something you want, like as an Asian American, Asian diaspora, if you're happy, as long as you're a good person, then God bless you. Do live your life however you want. You don't have to learn Chinese or Cantonese or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if it bothers you the way that it bothered me, then, and you're unhappy about it, then I encourage you to take the leap. Goo goo gaga your way through this, because you will be a better person. And any of those fucking mainlanders and any of the people from the motherland, they can't fucking judge you, because they didn't go what you went through to be the person who you are today, to overcome your insecurities. I had to overcome all my bullshit, bro, all my insecurities, all my self-hatred for me to even learn my own mother tongue. That's why it's the proudest achievement of my life.
That's awesome, man. Oh, yeah, and to add on to that, even for myself, like I can speak, I can listen, but I can't read or write. But growing up, that was definitely something that bugged me. But I found another way. Like, martial arts was another way. That was my outlet of feeling, hey, you know what? I felt like I'm betraying my own kind. So then I just gravitated towards martial arts, Eastern martial arts, and that helped fill my cup. So it's like, just again, that was out of the comfort zone too. It's like, everybody in North America, if you happen to be Asian, they assumed, or a lot of kids would assume, kung fu or something, right? And like,
so you're fulfilling the stereotype. Yeah, you're part of the problem, Aaron. You're fulfilling the stereotype that Asians know kung fu. Fuck you, Aaron. You're not. You're part of the problem.
I'm making it hard for the rest of us. Oh my goodness.
Well, guys, I guess there's no way around it, because Aaron learned kung fu and martial arts. So I guess as Asians, we should all there's no way around it. We gotta fulfill the stereotype.
There are other ways.
I know. No. Well, see, the thing, I wish I picked up Taekwondo or martial arts when I was a kid. Or when I was younger.
Yeah. And we all have our journeys. Everybody's different. We're unique, and embrace it. It's awesome. And you know what? For any listeners that are in school right now and feel like they're in this bubble or they're trapped, I, in my opinion, like, you're just scratching the surface of life, man. Things get much better if you feel like you're in a tunnel. And, it doesn't matter what people say. Work on yourself, be a good person, and just keep improving yourself. And, things will unravel. I'm a true believer in that.
Yeah. It's funny when we're elementary school, middle school, high school, like on the playground or in classroom, at the lunchroom, what other kids think of us and like how they judge us. And, our teen angst, like it's the biggest deal in the world. But now I'm just like, that was all kid shit. That was literally kid shit. All like the anxieties and insecurities I had as a kid. It's not such a big deal now compared to the problems that I have now. And that that's the what is it, the irony, it's like when you're a kid you want to grow up so you can like have all the freedoms of adult, but as an adult sometimes you wish you were a kid again, so you have the freedoms of being a kid and the lack of
Yeah.
responsibility. But I don't feel that way. I feel 100% like with the responsibilities and the discipline that comes with being an adult. Jocko Willing says discipline equals freedom. Well, I say if you're disciplined as an adult, you acquire some freedom for yourself, whether in time or the things that you want to do and the people you want to associate with, then you have more freedom as an adult and more power. If like you have some money and some time to be whoever you want and do whatever you want and travel and meet people, you have more freedom as a kid because you don't have to you don't have a curfew with mom and dad, and you can pay for yourself if you can take care of yourself. So yeah, it was funny. When we were kids, you're just scratching the surface. Yeah, it seems everything seems like a big deal at the time. I know because I've been there. But when you grow up, all your problems at the time when you're 20, 25, it's going to seem like the biggest deal at the time because it is. There's no other way to look at it. It is the biggest problem. Like right now, I might be going through some personal problems or whatever, and this seems like the biggest issue of my life. But then I just I meditate and I just think about it. I'm just like, will I feel the same in 5 years? Because in 5 years, I might have bigger problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I should do my best as an adult to be disciplined and do the shit that needs to get done. But at the same time, I shouldn't waste this time. I got to live life in the moment. Like I want to live on the bleeding edge every day.
Yeah. 100%. So do you ever see yourself moving back to America, or are you staying put in Korea for good?
I'm open to any possibility. Maybe I will go back to the States at some point. I would like to go more often just because COVID, right? But
yeah,
and the whole quarantine process that I don't want to do. But I'd like to visit the States more often. I might go back. We'll see. But otherwise, if things go as they are, then I'll probably stay in Korea, continue work on this podcast, work on the projects, just save money and live my life, which is very beautiful, exciting. I'm busy every day. I'm living life to the fullest every day. So yeah, I love my life here in Seoul in South Korea. And I think right now, I think this is the best place in the world for me to be. So I got a good thing going. I don't want to fuck it up. But at the same time, I'm open to new possibilities. I would love to, I don't know, live in Vietnam or Taiwan. I love those countries. We'll see. Yeah. What about you, man?
That's
where like, is there a place you want to move to or check out later on?
You know what? I think I don't think there's a place I want to move to yet. I think Canada is a pretty good place right now for the time being, but I do want to go and explore Asia and Europe a lot more. For myself, I'm very I'm a big fan of art, music, the arts. So I do want to go and check out the architecture in Europe, but definitely want to go check out what some of my favorite composers in Italy and in Germany and Austria. So I definitely want to go do that. And then with Asia, I mentioned about my martial arts background, right? So I want to go to, let's say in China, there's this place called Wudang Mountain, right? I want to go there because it's one of the places where the monks, and it's where a lot of scriptures are, right? Just to go back and dig deeper into the past, just to have a better understanding of, my Chinese side.
Wait, did you say the Wu-Tang Mountain? Is that where the Wu-Tang clan is from?
I don't know. I don't know much about Wu-Tang history, but maybe it could be.
I'm just fucking Wudang Mountain.
Wudang Mountain.
Wudang.
So,
or that sounds like the dream. Like Wudang. Like that's actually, I when I was a kid, like I kind of had this fantasy. Like even though I'm not Chinese, I want to go to China, learn Chinese, and then like hang out with monks and like read scriptures and shit. Like I still kind of have that desire myself. So maybe we can go together in a few years. We'll see.
100%. it's like the spiritual side of me, like the spiritual inclination, right? It's like
Same.
you mentioned you meditate. I meditate too. I'm very big into that, and like to me, martial arts is a big part of my life. It's the reason why I have my discipline today. It's like it's been such a big part. So like it's almost like paying homage, going back to like one of the origins and saying thank you and just living there would be pretty awesome, and devoting my life maybe to even teaching and sharing the tourists that come in or people that come, right? So that's definitely a place in Asia. But I do want to visit Seoul. Seoul, I heard Seoul's bumping. Seoul's a bumping place, especially for South Korea.
It's arguably one of the most bumping ass places in the world. It's really fucking lit.
Yeah,
It's really
and
dope.
yeah, Seoul's up there. Same with Tokyo for me. I haven't been to Japan either, or not necessarily Tokyo, but Japan also too. Um, yeah, those are my places that I definitely want to at least visit within the next 5 years.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, let's I don't know, keep in touch. Let me know if you ever do end up at Wu-Tang Clan, I mean Wudang Mountain,
Oh
and
yeah,
maybe we can go together for a month. We'll see how things pan out with COVID and like our resources and whatever. But that'd be really cool.
100%, man.
Yeah. Um, is there anything you want to share with the audience before we close up for today? To people who are maybe like struggling with their identity or trying to figure themselves out in life, like what would you tell your 15-year-old self, for example?
What I tell my 15-year-old self? That's a great
Yeah.
question.
Not that the audience is all 15-year-olds; they're probably twice that age, but just
Yeah,
your two
I
cents.
I think I think I think with my 15-year-old self, what I would tell myself is to not listen to anybody that you wouldn't trade places with. And an example that I can think of right off the bat is it's not me being 15, but like let's just say when I was dating my ex-wife, right? Or even my ex-girlfriends. I just have a tendency to not to be experimentative and date outside my race at times, right? So, but I'd have aunts and uncles. Obviously, there is that level of respect because they're your biological aunts and uncles, and they'll tell you um, negative stuff about dating a person of this race or that race, and obviously with the stereotypes, it could maybe be true, maybe it's not, but how do we know that, right? But then it's like I'm looking at their relationship with my aunts and uncles' relationships with their spouses, and it's like, I mean, you guys aren't really happy either. Like you guys are always arguing, you guys are doing this, and you guys are doing that, but then yet it's likewise too, right? So for myself, like I would tell myself, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with, and like embrace diversity, man. It's like just again, going back to that comfort zone thing. Get out of your comfort zone and yeah, yeah. Most ultimately, I think like yeah, going back to it. Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with, because I think that can also be elaborated with different scenarios too, right? So, but that would be it.
Oh, I really like that. I like that. Don't listen to anyone you wouldn't trade places with, and the inverse of that, listen to people you would trade places with. Like listen to people you want to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great, dude. I want to ask one more thing. What was one of the most rewarding things of doing your podcast? I meant to ask you this earlier, like first generation podcast. What's like one of the most memorable things or stories that you got out of it in your podcasting
Okay.
career?
So in my podcasting career, my most fulfilling moment is I did an episode. It was actually a response. Like I had an email, actually a couple emails, and they were actually my listeners, and they're emailing me. They took the time to email me, and they said, "Hey, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for your episode. It really helped me out, and it really gave me, they're just thanking me and saying how the episode had helped them out." And to me, that was the most gratifying and fulfilling moment, because I think from my perspective, it's like, hey, I helped somebody. Like it helped. I don't care if it's just one, two, three, or four, or a million. Obviously, not a million. Um, but I was able to, help give value to somebody. And to me, that was so gratifying. And to me, like, I feel like that's more gratifying than monetary things. So, to answer your question, the most gratifying moment, that would be it. One of the most memorable moments from an episode is when, one of my guests, he came out, like, he's an ex UFC fighter, and he came out on how he still has his insecurities from childhood trauma. And it got to the point where one of his he shared with me one of his takeaways, and essentially he says, he tells me that, there's one thing that we've never, as long as you're breathing and living, there's one thing you've never failed at, and you have 100% success rate. And I asked him, what is that? Like, I can't think of it. And he told me, and he responded, it's making it through a bad day. You've never failed at making it through a bad day. You could be a bad son. You could be a bad father. You could be a bad spouse for one day or a couple days. You could be terrible at what you do or at your job. But if it's a bad day, and as long as you're breathing, you're 100% success rate at making through it. So to me, that's also like one of the most memorable moments.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's fucking dope, man. Yeah. No matter what. Yeah. That if you make it through a bad day, which you will, then you have 100% success rate. So even a day that seems like a failure, right? You still make it. You still succeed.
Yeah.
Overall, as long as you're breathing.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's great, audience. Audience, if you're listening, you are a success already if you can make it through a bad day. And I know that you have, and that you will continue to do so. So we are all already succeeding in life, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Aaron, if people want to reach out to you or follow your podcast, First Generations, what's the best way to go about it?
Ooh, okay. So if you want to tune into the podcast First Generations podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iTunes. And I'm on Instagram. So on Instagram, it's also the First Generations podcast. And I have a website also, which is the www.thefirstgenerationspodcast.com. But yeah, feel free to reach out. I'd love feedback. If you don't like my voice, tell me that, and tell me why. don't just tell me your voice sucks and then period and send. Like, let me know why. Or yeah, I love jokes too. Like, if you've got a funny joke, like, hit me up, man. But yeah, that's where I can be found.
Awesome. Aaron, thanks so much for coming on the show today. And everyone, please check out Aaron and his First Generations podcast. And yes, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on today. This was an awesome conversation.
Right. Thank you, Mime. I'm honored and privileged to come on. And it was also an awesome conversation on my end too, man. Thank you.
All right, dope. Thanks, Mime Timers, for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Mime Time. Oh, baby.